This past month, the average price of gasoline has risen to the highest levels recorded in U.S. history. Unsurprisingly, the vast majority of Americans aren't very happy about it. It's frustrating to be at the peril of rapidly rising prices for a commodity that many Americans depend on as a means of participating in daily life. However, while every political party scrambles to point fingers as to who or what lies at fault for the increase, the recurrence of the age-old gas debate seems to repeatedly ignore greater underlying issues that ought to be addressed. For decades, the vast majority of Americans have idealized and relied on cars as the primary form of transport. And while there are many obvious benefits that come with owning a car, unless cultural perceptions shift away from our automobile addiction, gas prices can only expect to continue rising as a symptom of increased demand. Car dependency is an incredibly hefty topic, with far too many reasons behind its development and solutions to its grip to be covered in a short op-ed. However, one great starting point to fixing this dilemma that has already been utilized but is repeatedly overlooked and underfunded by American institutions is the development of viable public transportation. For many American families, getting your first car has become a sort of modern cultural milestone. There's plenty to romanticize about this occasion of newfound freedom and responsibility. The image of long road trips with friends and family, radio blasting, wind flowing through the windows as you speed down country roads, it's a uniquely American privilege. But that's where one key issue of car dependency comes in. At the end of the day, being a car owner is indeed a privilege. Owning a car, and this doesn't include the payment for the car itself, costs somewhere between $6,000 and $12,000 a year. Anyone who's not lucky to afford this rite of passage quickly becomes aware of the caveats of living carless. Adequate transportation isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. And yet, in many places where public transport is scarce, not being able to afford a car becomes a significant barrier to economic mobility. In one Harvard study, it was found that the biggest indicator as to whether or not a person can escape poverty was commute time. Poor transportation, either due to poor infrastructure or a lack of it entirely, means fewer options for viable work. And the longer your commute, the more likely you are to be late to important meetings and spend less time with your family. Another study found that anywhere between 10% and up to 51% of people in some states said that bad transportation is a barrier to their health care. Long commutes and car problems can lead to missed doctor's appointments, which is already something hard to come by and schedule with work if you're living on a low income. Being trapped by poor transport is a health hazard, but even outside situational poverty, there are many other ways that car dependency is literally killing us on both an individual and collective scale. According to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, motor vehicle crashes are the leading cause of death for Americans between the ages of 5 and 34. There's also a heavy correlation between car usage and obesity. In comparison, public transportation has proven to be the overwhelmingly safer option. Specifically, it is 10 times safer per mile than traveling by car because it has less than a tenth the per mile traffic casualty rate as automobile travel. And that doesn't even include the environmental ramifications, which is a whole other behemoth of a subject worth tackling. To make things short, though, when compared to single occupancy vehicles, public transportation produces 95% less carbon dioxide, 92% fewer volatile organic compounds, 45% less carbon dioxide, and 48% less nitrogen oxide. When these pollutants enter our atmosphere, they contribute to global warming, smog, acid deposition, and health problems, which can lead to decreased respiratory health, increased cases of pneumonia, premature death, cancer, and other diseases, just to name a few. All that being said, though, you don't have to be a hardcore humanitarian, health nut, or part of the poverty class to recognize and appreciate the wide-scale benefits of public transportation. In fact, better public transport can actually enhance your experience as a happy car owner. Now, in case the idyllic road tripper picture I mentioned earlier didn't resonate with you, here's something that certainly will. Who doesn't love to commute? Starting and ending your workday by sitting in a cramped vehicle, slowly inching through a symphony of honking horns and sputtering engines, trying to clear your mind while simultaneously paying enough attention to avoid getting into a road rage-induced wreck. Best part of owning a car, right? Didn't think so. In an effort to combat traffic issues, many cities throw heaps of taxpayer money towards adding more lanes to the road, thinking that if we increase road capacity, traffic will decrease as a result. But this isn't the case. According to the fundamental law of road congestion, increasing road capacity actually increases traffic congestion. I know, it seems counterintuitive, but basically people drive more when there are more roads to drive on. And while public transportation isn't immune to this system, it still brings its fair share of benefits. According to the Association of Central Oklahoma Governments, increased transit use will help stabilize increases in congestion and maximize the value of a transportation network. With more options to choose from, commuters will spread out between the modes, increasing the efficiency of the system. The evidence is overwhelmingly abundant. Cities that prioritize public transportation over car-dependent infrastructure can expect to increase the economic prosperity of the region and give citizens an overall greater quality of life. But if none of these points are sinking in at the current moment, maybe they will when your wallet starts to wheeze after you've filled up your next tank of gas.